It is impossible to make a Superman video game. This is what we've been told for the better part of the last 40 plus years that they've been making video games. Now, I don't think this is true. I get what they're saying, but I don't think this is true. So in this video, I'm going to try to build out a perfect Superman video game that I think could work, even though the character is super overpowered. So let's get to it. Whatever footage you are seeing on the screen right now, I'm not sure what game I'm going to put there, is obviously not indicative of what I'm talking about because there is no good Superman video game or anything that even comes close. So we got to kind of just use our imagination. So don't worry about the gameplay. It's just there for the sake of adding atmosphere for the video and just adding something to look at while I ramble on about a Superman video game. So again, for decades, we've been told you cannot make a good Superman video game. They've attempted plenty of times. One of them, Superman 64, is possibly considered one of the worst games of all time. Superman Returns had a tie-in video game that was alright. There was a Man of Steel video game on the original Xbox, which was also alright. There was a couple more on PlayStation 2 and other attempts, but all of them fail to deliver the Superman fantasy. Or they just don't get how to do it. Now, there's a couple reasons I think that this is something that we've seen with Superman games that's obviously become very dominant in the conversation, and that's that Superman's too powerful. Nobody knows how to do it. You can't make a good Superman game. I will argue you can, but the problem is, when they were trying, things were still experimental. Gaming today for a third-person video game has not really been a template that's been established in the industry since 2010, 2011. That's when it really took off. Back in the day, there wasn't many games that were letting you control the character and have free camera that could move left, right, up, and down without moving the character. They were still figuring this out, and we can largely attribute that to Ubisoft and how they evolved Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creed to modern-day cameras. Also, the open world concept, that people know so much, that's attributed to Assassin's Creed and Grand Theft Auto and a couple other games. You got to bring that into consideration and realize that the last Superman game that really tried was, again, Superman Returns. So far behind us that you cannot use that as a template for Superman games don't work. So what I'm proposing, and what I'm going to explain in the next section of the video, is how I would structure a Superman video game despite him being so overpowered. So part one of this is, how do you take Superman, who's so powerful, and how do you put that into a video game? It's very simple. It's a new continuity, guys. Superman was unable to fly before. He could leap tall buildings in a single bound. And then flight was added. There's been continuities where obviously Superman gets new powers. His powers adjust for whatever is needed. Just like how we see in the MCU and the DCU. You have to scale so he's not a godlike character. You have to take that same approach. So what I'm saying here is, you give us Superman his heat vision, maybe you limit that. Sure, it's heat vision, and maybe he's got to focus 5 seconds to burn a hole through something with it, right? Not instantaneous. Maybe his ice breath, again, takes a couple seconds to engulf something in full ice instead of just outright freezing it in an instant. You have to take a story approach to this as well. Why not establish that Superman gets more powerful the older he gets and the more yellow sun that he absorbs? Therefore, you say that, yeah, he started developing his powers and absorbing sunlight when he was young, but his actual powers didn't manifest till he was 15 or 16, and those were light super speed and light jumping abilities, where he could just jump 3 to 4 times the height of a normal human. This then tells us that in this universe, in this continuity, Superman, as he gets older, he gets more powerful. So now you set an expectation and some flashback tutorials at a teenage Clark Kent at the Kent farm where you're learning his powers, right? And what you do here, to me essentially, is establish that this game takes place when Clark is 22, 23 years old. fresh, graduating from college, starting his job at the Daily Bugle. And again, he's still so young that the absorption of sun that he's taken in is not the full OP Superman we would get. The promise with this is that we're going to get to that Superman if we get a part 3. Part 2, he'll be more powerful. Part 3, he's the full-on Superman that we know, who has all those crazy abilities and is so OP that he's a godlike character. So what I'm saying, in part 1, you scale things back and you take it back to basics. So here's my story. Again, the story is going to start 15 years in the future. Metropolis is under attack by an alien force. You are Superman fully unleashed. You got all your powers. And Superman is fighting Doomsday. Doomsday does the death of Superman in the opening act. The Legion of Superheroes literally shows up and rewinds to a couple minutes before Superman's death and tells him things have gone wrong in the past. This isn't supposed to happen. We've been sent here to correct things. We need you to go back to where it all started. This goes all the way back to your first year in Metropolis. So what they're going to do is essentially help and do a Mortal Kombat style. We're going to send a vision of what just happened to the past to you. And you have to course correct and figure out what led us here. So now we go all the way back to right when he's got his job. He's sort of hit with this vision of the future, and he realizes his time is ticking. The clock is ticking. Now, we got urgency, right? But also, we realize in the future, whenever we get there, if we get to a third game, we're fighting Doomsday. We already know what the future is. So right now, in this continuity, back in time, Clark now understands what's at stake, what he has to do. But they can't, obviously, and they couldn't tell him what he needs to look into and who's behind this. What causes this? What causes the death of Superman? Where are his allies? What's going on? So now we got a sense of the future, and now we're back at this time. And essentially, the game just gives us control of Clark, right? And our first mission, just throw us out there, and we got to save, a cat from a tree. We got to go help a kid recover his balloon, Spider-Man 2 style, right? We are Superman, first and foremost. And then we're going to get into a big event, our first big villain. I don't know who it is. Let's say Metallo for the sake of it. We're going to end up fighting Metallo in Chapter 1. And when we're doing this, the game will have some flashbacks because, again, time manipulation is now messing with Clark's mind. This perfectly allows us to experience flashbacks the way that the game stops and gives you a tutorial, but they're framed in a way where we're getting flashbacks to Clark first learning how to leap, how to jump, how to use his, heat vision and all this. And we got the most basic version of it. So the game is going to take place across about a year. And again, as Clark develops more powers, he's absorbing more sunlight. So he's still not godlike, but that's the promise of the future. And slowly you sort of unfold this story and mystery of what's going on. So let me explain some of the gameplay elements. During the first game, you got all sorts of things that are going on. It's an open world, but again, Superman is still kind of limited. So you're going to have a stamina bar. Now, your stamina bar doesn't drain super quickly, but we're talking about fly across open world Metropolis 2 or 3 times and stop like 3 or 4 crimes quickly. He's going to need to recover for a minute or 2, right? So again, we are adding urgency, but we're also adding a stamina management system. And of course, you can level up various things as you complete missions, different districts that need to be cleaned out. There's, of course, different villains that pop up from Livewire to who knows who, working with the, let's say Department of Defense of Metahumans, something like that. You're trying to help them as Superman, but again, you still got doubt. And as you're so new and still fresh, again, maybe they're also a little bit reluctant to work with you. There's other heroes that exist in this universe. Even them, you're talking to them, but you're the new guy on the scene. Is Guy Gardner going to accept anything from Superman? Who's Superman? I'm Green Lantern, you know? You got the Flash over here who stops by. He's like, look, kid, I don't know who you are, but I'm Barry Allen. Like, let me give you some tips. Therefore, Barry teaches you how to develop a little bit faster super speed, right? You're learning from these veterans, essentially like Spider-Man Web of Shadows, in that sort of element. And whoever you're learning from, you sort of learn more abilities from them. So the more you're interacting with the Flash when you level up, the more that your super speed is going up and your endurance. Working with Green Lantern, ideas behind how to be better in combat. You're working with somebody like Wonder Woman. She's teaching you how to not pull punches and be able to dish out more damage. So that's your strength going up. So everything is in this DC universe evolving with you. The more you play it, the more time you spend with each character. And you can do all of them, but then you're going to be a jack of all trades, but a master of none. So you really have to balance it. And again, you frame the story around this, and you give Superman urgency, but at the same time, we understand his limits. And now you got those sequences that are like Marvel's Spider-Man, where you're in the Daily Planet, and you're having to go out there with Lois and with Jimmy, and you got to do some crime solving, sort of like Batman in the Arkham games, right? And we can see he's intuitive. So during these sequences, if you invest points into them, Clark is studying the crime scene, what's going on, he's picking up clues. So the more of these you do, the easier it is for you to fight the villain that's causing this and single out his weak spots. So doing the investigative journalism and reporting is helping you find weaknesses faster. Again, it's a fine balance of everything that makes Superman Superman. Which brings me to the final act of the game, which is going to be Doomsday. So what we end up getting is sort of a twist. We thought Doomsday was coming 15 years from now at the end of the third game. Nope. They realized that the Legion went back in time and they sent Doomsday back through time. Who is this mystery person that sent him? Don't worry. If we get a sequel, we're going to get into that. But Doomsday shows up. Now, urgency is at an all-time high, at a premium. You got to use everything you've learned in the final act to fight Doomsday. But you know what you've done differently? You've worked with all these heroes. You've learned from them. Now you got all these heroes helping you. Because what we found out in the old continuity when Superman died is that there was no Justice League. A lot of the heroes didn't really come together. There wasn't a central focus. Clark, Superman, got the idea from the Legion telling him in the message that he's got to put together the best team possible. Now we got a proto-league. And obviously, you, with the League, you're going to take down Doomsday. But you know the twist with Doomsday, he always comes back stronger and meaner. So by the time the first game is over, you have built out a Superman story that already involves a super powerful Superman that were promised in sequels, but now we're building up to that. We also are forming a Justice League, which allows us to connect with characters and build out sequels and build out a universe. You combine this with the fact that Superman's powers will continue to enhance game to game, you see exactly what I'm saying here. You don't have to start off with Superman being a godlike character. You just have to start off with a great story, a great premise, and the promise of that. And you're going to get to that, but again, we need to set a foundation. Imagine how Arkham Asylum would be if you just gave Batman an open Gotham City and the Batmobile in that game out the gate. What do you build up to in the sequels? You can't, because you gave them everything. So you have to limit this. So the promise is here. And you're building out the world. And the sequel can get bigger. The sequel can have more cities and heroes. But again, you got to set the foundation. I've been thinking about a Superman game since as long as I've been alive, really, and figured out who Superman was. And it's always been something that's on my mind as you got to depower him or level out the playing field, promise of a future, and then make sure that the story and characters are important and do something with time travel. This is how I would do it. Now, again, I know some people are going to hate this. A lot of people are going to comment they don't like it. That's fine. What would you like to see? Because this is what I would like to see. I think it's possible. And with today's technology and knowing how games work, everything I just said can be pulled off. And finally, the gameplay for third-person action-adventure games, even with flying, has been figured out. So that's no longer a limit. The only limit is the fact that the developers keep saying it's hard to figure out Superman. But I think I just explained in about 16 minutes why that is BS and how Superman can work if you just approach it with the right story, right respect, source material, and understand that this needs to be a Superman story that takes us from square one all the way to the end of Superman in the future. Thank you for checking out that video, and thank you for your continued support. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, do whatever you will, and if you're so inclined and would like some additional content from us, which includes unfiltered content and bonus discussions, we do offer exclusively in our member section. We hope to see you there. So thank you for watching, and have a good one.